Hey, James, what are Sundays for?
Throwing zone.
Throw him what?
Throwing zone.
Throw zones.
So pitter patter, let's get at her.
You obviously have not got to that point in Letterkenny yet.
Is it after she cheats on him?
Joel will never get to that part of Letterkenny.
It's the season ender of the season before this last one.
I don't think so. No, I'm actually trying to catch up. Somebody else lost interest, so I got one the other day. Oh, apropos of nothing, I watched most of the Top Gun Maverick movie finally.
I still have not turned it on.
Okay, have you seen it, James?
No,
So
you know what? I've realized that movie's not for me.
Well, hold on. We're all in agreement that Top Gun is not for us.
No.
And I'm never a big fan, but I didn't go back and watch it. But I was watching this, and I was thinking two things. Okay, one, it's not awful. It's not. It's watchable, and you do get into it a little bit. I'm giving it a compliment for someone who does not care for Top Gun and is watching a sequel retread of the movie 40 years later. Okay?
Yeah.
Number two, how the fuck did that movie get nominated for Best Picture?
No, I'll be honest.
I started out with the compliment, and I'm not shitting on it. It's not. I'm telling you both, it's not a terrible movie. And actually, Tom Cruise gives one of his better performances.
Here's my answer.
Truly.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ratings.
I don't
brought
know.
people back to the box office. That was the Academy's credit for it bringing people back to the box office.
Either, so I might sneak out and try to watch Avatar for at least cinema.
Did you say Avatar?
Avatar. I'm doing the adult version. Avatars.
A little too much rouge there. A little.
Yes. Well, I like them with a little too much rouge. Let's be honest. I like forward whores.
Are those people who never are those people who never reply to your emails? They just send them on to others.
Actually, I thought he was saying. I was thinking he wanted really well-read whores, not those backwards people that don't read much.
No, I like prostitutes who always take the time to read.
No, you already said the one word. We're already canceled, you dumbass.
Prostitute?
Yeah, that's the one you said.
So whore, can be male or female. I think that's gender. If I know anything about gender fluidity, and I don't.
Now he's tripped on a bunch of gender fluids.
As Joe keeps going on, I just want to point out it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. No, I mean.
But back to Top Gun Maverick. I think
gender fluids.
You guys got Paramount. I think you should check it out. I just want you to come back and say
I will watch it eventually. But I got G-Man from Hell on Tubi, man.
That's true. You can't.
Awful. I just stand behind my critique is how the fuck did that get nominated for Best Picture?
Honestly, that's my assumption is that's the Academy saying, "Hey, you brought people back to the theater in person. Let's give credit."
And as I'm watching it, I was thinking, even on a decent TV, I was thinking, I bet this was a lot cooler in the theater. I bet
like Gravity.
Gravity. I bet it's a different experience. And it's not an awful movie. Once again, and it has Jennifer Connelly in it, looking smoking fine. Had Tom Cruise topless in it, looking smoking fine. A lot of people in it topless. All men.
Yeah.
All men. They had a football scene.
There's not volleyball.
Not volleyball.
What?
And it's got John Hamm. And Chad, what's your favorite part of John Hamm?
Fletch.
I haven't seen it yet. Is it streaming somewhere?
It's on that show. It's on Paramount if you have the Showtime option.
You have the Showtime option?
I saw it in the theater.
Oh, you rich.
That was my that and shoot, I've already forgot the name of it. The Sam Rockwell
there you go.
Detective movie.
That's the one with it take in like Europe or wherever.
Yeah. Those were two movies.
You can see them leave or there they went. I watched it on HBO.
Yeah. Those were two movies I went and saw 1 week. I saw in one weekend because I was so excited to see both of those.
I went and saw that Ant-Man with my son.
Right?
What?
One of them was okay. I like
One of
parts of that Sam Rockwell movie, but
I did like parts of it, but man, it was predictable.
How was that Ant-Man picture?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I can see where some people are saying it's getting a little bit like the Marvel cinematic thing.
The bubble's getting ready to. The bubble has bursted.
I don't. I mean,
I don't
And it
agree with that either.
I don't agree with it either, but I'm just saying they haven't really released a lot of fun, entertaining movies
no,
for me lately.
I think this one's fun because without spoiling the ending.
Yeah,
At
don't.
the ending,
I
at one point,
I've loved both Ant-Man movies.
yeah, well, and you'll like this one because at one point at the end, he actually questions, wait a second, did we just make everything worse? And the questions, and that's what I like about the movie.
Okay.
Because as you watch the movie, it does set up the question of, wait a second, what if, not to Indiana Jones this up, but what if they just would have stayed at the house? And somebody even posted if Jordan Peele made it or something like that, it was a mock-up of Get Out. It's like African American man pestered by white family in his own home.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually what it's about. He is there and they go there. And it's I'll be interested. It made me want to see this next phase. It did do that. And actually Paul Rudd's likable.
Yeah.
And so no, I had a good time with it. Now, is it going to change your view of cinema? No. Is it as much fun as the first? Did it give me the same feeling I got the first time I watched Iron Man? No.
My kid.
So it's somewhere in between.
My kid has burned through the 3 Iron Man films a couple of times last few. I think his favorite's the second one. It has more AC/DC. He just
actually that's Silas's. I think that's his least favorite one.
Yeah,
that's my least favorite.
I'm not arguing with you.
I want to know what they cut for Mickey Rourke because Mickey Rourke. That's why he said he'd never come back. He evidently built an entire backstory and they filmed it and they
the
never
5-year-old still loves Spider-Man 3 too. So there you go. No counting for taste. All right. So
should we actually get to the topic? I think we're 20 minutes in and I need to.
No, it's good.
We're 7. 7, Chad. Jeez.
Okay.
Exaggerate.
Anybody that's a fan of this show knows we don't get to our topic till 10 minutes before
Joe's
we wrap
already
it up.
canceled us by minute 4.
By saying prostitute or whore?
Yeah, that's what you said.
Which one canceled us?
I'm not saying it.
You
the
can't
Ford
say prostitute whore.
Ford Blake.
Say it, Chad.
Nope.
Say it.
Nope.
Is it awful close to a She-Ra villain?
Yep.
And ends with Dak. Poor Dak. Yeah, I didn't know that was cancelable. So there you go.
Well, if you watch Farzar, then none of this is cancelable.
That's true. That's true. We're never.
By the way, I know we need to go on with the topic, but I watched Paradise PD finally all the way through.
I've only watched the first.
That's why I like Paradise PD over Farzar because I watched that one first.
Well, see, I watched Farzar first. I went back and watched it, but I'll be honest. You know what Paradise PD has going for it?
What? The old cop?
No. The old cop is occasionally funny. It's Dusty, the fat guy.
Yeah.
Dusty, by the last season, there's an entire episode where you don't even see him. It goes to that rescue.
He's my second favorite character.
Where it's just the text on the screen like they do on cop shows.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be him talking to an officer, but he's accidentally he ate a bunch of drugged brownies because he didn't know they had drugs in them.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there and he goes, "There's a guy in my house and he keeps staring at me." And it keeps going back and forth. And finally he goes, I'm gonna punch him. And the guy on the phone, "Do not try to punch him, sir." And of course it's Samir in his bathroom. But he punched him, he goes, "He put glass in my hand." And it keeps going on. And finally, my favorite part about it is that the officer gets tired of dealing with him. He goes, "Sir, there's only one way to fight those people that look exactly like you. If you go over to your window, or are you on a tall story?" Yeah, I'm on like the 5th floor. Okay, go over to your window and put your foot out and see if he puts his foot out too. Yeah, he's doing it. The dumb. He just and it ends up with him jumping out the window to stop the guy that looks exactly like him. And I don't know why. That's about a 1.5-minute clip, and I was rolling all the way through it. Dusty may be the greatest animated character of the past 5 years. Just I couldn't help it, and none of it's correct. None of it is. It's just funny.
I like the part. I like the things with her hitting on him and all the things she says to him. So anyway, imagine that. Now, our topic today was a James Thomas topic, and I
Yeah, so
agreed to it and thought it was a really good idea until I started looking things up and trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about. And then I was like, damn you, James. You've
if
thrown
it makes you
a
feel any better,
curveball.
I had the same experience. So here's the setup for how this happens, ladies and gentlemen.
This may
I
not
don't
be
know
our
why.
longest
There's so
episode.
many.
There is. Well, I'm going to start talking about a Vulture article that will do a tree down as we talk about it.
But so what started was I was goofing off. Actually, I wasn't goofing off, but somebody said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this film directed by Walter Hill called The Long Riders?" And I had never heard of The Long Riders. Never, 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 never heard of it. But somebody's like, "Oh, you like so many movies. We thought you would have heard of it." And I said, "Nope."
When was
What?
this?
What's a guy I work with that just knows that he's never listened to the show. Don't worry.
Well,
But
no, I thought we talked about it on the show, but clearly we haven't.
no, I don't think so because I didn't know. And he said, "Oh, it's got a bunch of those. It's got a bunch of brothers in it." And he said, "Actually, that's all it's really got going for it." And then I looked it up and found out it was Walter Hill and all that stuff. Actually, but so this movie is called The Long Riders. It stars the Carradines. That would be David, Keith, and Robert as the youngers. It stars James and Stacy Keach as Jesse and Frank James. It stars Dennis and Randy Quaid as the Millers, and Christopher Guest and Nicholas Guest as the Fords, Charlie and Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Same Western thing. But Walter Hill said he did it because he always wanted to do a Western.
Yeah.
But he said the way they wrote it and how this came together is really interesting. Evidently, there was a musical that Stacy Keach and James Keach had done on stage that was based on this. And then somebody else was writing an actual kind of historical film about it. And they merged them together to make this. But Walter Hill has the best quote about this because he says it actually doesn't work as a movie in the ways people expect it to because it's not a 3-act play. It's a 4-act play. And he went on to say, well, I'll just quote him. Instead of the logical conclusion being at Northfield, it then goes on to another phase of a spiral downward and ends in Jesse's death. It's very hard material to give the proper dramatic curve to. It doesn't lay out in a classic 3-act structure. It's almost a 4-act piece with Northfield and the aftermath being the culmination of the 3rd act. The 4th act is almost an epilogue, how they went down. There's a line from a Jean-Luc Godard film. The jokes are funny, but the bullets are real. That's really what this movie is about. These were big, reckless, high-spirited guys that were unaware of the ripples they caused. But the movie got sold because they went to the studio, they went to the United Artists and say, we'll just cast a bunch of brothers. And that was the gimmick. And the story goes that the way they got the Carradines to do it is they went to, I think, Keith first and went, well, David said he'd do it if you would do it.
Sorry, I can't say that damn word. Why can't
corroborated?
Corroborated, yeah, that, and he talks a little bit about it in his book. If you ever get a chance to read David Carradine's autobiography, it's 800 pages, but it's a hell of a read.
And so, yeah, that's what they did. They went back and forth to them and went, well, your brother agreed to do it if you do it. Well, I'll do it if he does it. And that's how they got him to do it. But it stars 4 sets of brothers who all were relatively names to conjure with in some way or another. And it came out, and according to, I didn't know this, United Artists, it made money. Not a lot, but I think Stacy Keach said they actually were writing a prequel that they finished and it just never got made.
Yeah.
But so the Long Riders, but anyway, it got me thinking there's quite a few movies out there that are, for lack of a better term, family films, not really being watched by families, but they star a lot of people from a family. And so that's why I pitched the topic. But much like Joe said, I pitched it and then I realized it's not going to be, there's not, I struggled with it once I said, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I do need to see The Long Riders because he directed Warriors, Joe. Warriors.
Red Heat. I can't believe you have. I hadn't watched it till a few years ago. I really wanted to. It was actually one of the producers on that is Sandy King. And the reason that's, well, I'll just say it. We had her verbal yes, and then her agent, although we've told later by maybe a certain screenwriter that she probably didn't want to do it and just had her agent cancel on us. And Sandy King is famous for not only being a producer, but she's also married to John Carpenter. That's John Carpenter's right, Sandy King Carpenter. And I just really had never seen it. I'm with James. It was only in the last few years. Chad, have you ever watched it?
Brothers,
Brothers?
Long Riders.
Long
Long
Riders.
Riders. Sorry, I seen parts of it a long time ago. I
Well,
could
I
not.
hadn't seen, and I enjoyed it, but it's not an overly good film. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Supernova and the Walter Hill catalog, but it's not. It's fun because of all the different great character actors who are all brothers in it. Like James said, it's a fun little movie for that. But at the same time, I don't know that it quite works. So when James brought this up and I was trying to do research, I was like, oh well, there's got to be, and it's hard because you can't just search family movies and then you start looking about nepotism in Hollywood, and then that's where it gets tricky because Vulture did this whole thing about Gen Z babies that are nepotism. I'm not even going to get into those. Okay. And then there's even more when you just go back and back and back. For example, second generation stars, Tom Hanks, Colin Hanks, Bruce Willis, Demi Moore, Rumor Willis. And all of these people went on to be in movies. So we have Sosie Bacon now. And then, hold on, Kate Capshaw, Steven Spielberg's daughter, Jessica Capshaw. Who else do we have? Scott Conn, Jane Conn's son. I can
And
go on.
you've got all the Estevezinses, right?
Yeah.
I haven't even went back all the way.
The Barrymores, actually, I would say you could write a book about, but there's about 15 books about all the way back with Lionel Barrymore, John Barrymore, obviously Drew Barrymore. I mean, that is a legacy family of award-winning actors.
Well, and there's a couple of those. I mean, you got to talk about you mentioned the Carradines, but I mean, you didn't. I mean, it starts with John Carradine, the father.
Yeah.
And then he goes and has David, Robert, Keith, Bruce, and Chris. And then they go on to have Martha Plimpton.
Yep.
Is and then there's Kansas, Tom, Ever, and Callista. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, they just keep the Carradine family just keeps having people go into now some of the great grandchildren of John Carradine, other than Martha, really haven't gone on to do much. But it's still just it's the cycle keeps going with this family. So why does how does this nepotism continue? And then the other family that has that same kind of lineage is the Fondas.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go on and on and on about them. I mean, it starts with Henry Fonda, and then it goes down to Jane and help me guys, I'm
Jane and Peter Fonda.
Jane and Peter, and then Bridget Fonda.
Yep.
I mean,
Bridget, go ahead.
No,
Bridget Fonda and Peter Fonda. Was it Gas Food Lodging? Is that the one? Peter Fonda has a quick cameo in that movie with her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No,
I keep interrupting you.
No, it's okay. You go.
But we have that's another one. Let's talk about the Houstons. That goes all the way back to Walter Houston, then John Houston, Angelica Houston, and the character actor Danny Houston. If you don't know who that is, he is a famous actor in his own right. If you're a huge fan of Boardwalk Empire, he was the soldier who had the fake mask.
Which, by the way, is a phenomenal role that he plays.
Yes, I agree.
Like, honestly, once I saw him in that, I'm like, I can't picture him almost in anything else because he does that so well.
3 generations, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
go ahead.
Kirk Douglas, Michael Douglas, and Cameron Douglas. Cameron just now getting back into acting, we'll say. But, I mean, there's definitely something there as well.
Now, I was just going to say, along with the Carradines and the Fondas, another mega family who you got to think about when you think of Hollywood nepotism is the flippin' Coppolas.
Yep.
I mean, you have Carmen Coppola, you have Francis Ford Coppola, you have Talia Shire.
Shire.
Shire. And then that goes to Sophia, Jason Schwartzman, Nick Cage. I mean, the list of the Coppolas in
I want to
cinema.
make a joke about how, not like Nick Cage, who had to make it all on his own. That's a real working actor.
Yeah, for some of you who are listening to this, Nick Cage is a Coppola. They
Yeah.
probably don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is his? Because his first name isn't Nick either, is it? It's.
I'm not for sure about that.
Well, you all talk. I'll look it up. I
I'll
meant to
double.
write it
Yeah,
down.
it may be,
And
but
let's,
I
Chad brought up the Estevez's earlier, and we can't forget that.
yeah. Well, I
James
mean,
did.
especially Joe Estevez, the America's Estevez. But I didn't know this, by the way. Joe Estevez, when
Yeah.
Michael Sheen
Mhm.
had that heart attack and couldn't finish some of it of a certain movie that is famous. I didn't know they brought in Joe Estevez to help finish it.
It's Nicholas Kim Coppola.
Okay, it's Nicholas Cage. Okay, it is Nick. Okay, sorry.
Dumbass.
Yeah, I deserve that. I deserve that.
Well, and when you're done, I'm going to talk about the Bridges and the Brolins.
But no, well, as I was saying, that's the entire thing. But Joe Estevez is in a lot of movies that aren't great. He's in a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000 follow-up. I'll say it that way. Now, I will be honest. Usually, he is the best thing in that stuff. He does have some talent. He just he doesn't have his brother's, I guess, presence. But yeah, no, the Estevez and all of that is yeah, definitely a family legacy. Go ahead, Joe. Talk about the Bridges.
Well, Lloyd Bridges had two sons, Bo and Jeff, who were both fantastic actors. Of course, we all know Jeff's a little more famous than Bo, but they both have worked all their lives, and Lloyd worked all of his life. And what's interesting about it is that they both got their starts on his TV show Sea Hunt. Sea Hunt, which people don't remember as much as they did. I'm sorry, I'm looking up something too. But that I find that fascinating that they both went on to have full careers. Josh Brolin is the son of Barbra Streisand and James Brolin. People don't know that Barbra Streisand. And then let's go through just some of these. And I'm like I said, I wanted to bring this up from Vulture because Vulture did this really good article where it goes into detail. And I didn't know this about the Chaplins. The Chaplins have ruled for 110 years. Playwright Eugene O'Neill was the father of actress Una O'Neill, who married Charlie Chaplin. Una also dated J.D. Salinger. They had a daughter, actress Geraldine Chaplin. Geraldine's daughter is Game of Thrones actress Una Chaplin. Anybody?
I don't know who she is in Game of Thrones.
I don't know. The Coppolas, like you said, for 52 years, because what we forget, we think of Francis Ford Coppola, but we forget Francis Ford Coppola was the son of a famous composer, a guy named Carmine Coppola.
Yep.
Right? And Talia Shire is Francis's sister. Francis' children, filmmakers Sophia and Roman Coppola. Sophia is married to Thomas Mars of the brand Phoenix. Talia's sons are actor Jason Schwartzman and musician Robert Schwartzman. Carmine was also the grandfather of James. Who's your favorite actor? Say Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it would have been Nick Cage.
That's why we just said this. Why are you repeating it?
I just was trying to make sure everybody understood where we were.
Okay.
At. Why are you being a dick?
I don't know what you're doing.
I'm reading off stuff about all these different families that go back not just once, but for several years. Now, back to when we're talking about nepotism in films, and this is going a little different than I thought it would, but I'm actually think it's slightly more interesting. People talk about, and it was great on, I'm going to give you an example. On Project Greenlight, when they did Feast, and the movie Feast, it was a Project Greenlight feature. And they brought Wes Craven in to make a horror film because they used to do the show called Project Greenlight. And a couple of the films that they made, the show was more popular than the actual movies. And they wanted to make them, finally, they decided to do a horror film with the third or fourth season. And they wanted to, yes, Chad.
Just want to point out, you can watch Feast for free on Tubi.
And it well worth it. Well worth it. Check out Feast. The sequels are diminishing returns, but check out the first Feast. The guy was John Gallagher. He's the director. He's the one they picked. And he wanted to cast his dad, and they threw up a fit because his dad is the famous character actor who just passed away last year, Clu Gallagher.
Yeah. Yep.
And he also wanted to cast his partner, and I don't remember her name, as the lead actress Tuffy. They both got into the movie, and the series documents him trying to get them cast, and his dad sitting there in a diner. They're in a diner late at night, and his dad had made a list of nepotism in Hollywood, and he's talking about the Fondas and everyone else and the Coppola's going down the list. And it stuck in my mind. I guess this was 15, 20 years ago, for as long as for all this time, because I often wonder, is it positive? And so the way I look at it is, there's nepotism in everything. So
yeah, you're learning a trade. You're learning the family trade.
You're learning kind of the family trade, and some people take to it and some people don't. For example, my dad was a mechanic. He was good with those things. I am not good and never had any interest in those things. It's the same thing with acting. That's what they were brought up around. That's what they might find interesting. And that's the reason a musician has an artist, because you're learning the family trade. Now, the counter argument to that, I will say, is that when you grow up around it, you have access to things that other people who may want to get into it don't. Correct. Even if people don't want to hire you because you're Clu Gulager's son, you will still know how the industry probably works better than anyone. Just like I know how I took it, because my dad never graduated high school, ran his own business. I had an intro to business class I didn't even buy the book for in Moorhead, and ended up making a B in the class just simply because of shit I learned from my dad. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there's nepotism, and yes, that gives you, but it happens in every other industry.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
Son or daughter that inherits the business.
I agree with you, and in some cases, it never bothers me, because it's like, case in point, you have you have Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh,
right,
who gave us Jamie Lee,
who just won Best Actress.
Who just won Best Actress.
And congratulations for her body of work. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know if she deserves it for the movie, but she deserves it.
You really need to borrow my Blu-ray to watch that. It is a phenomenal.
No, you had it on Blu-ray.
I bought it the day it got released.
If I knew that, I'd have told you to drop it off.
Yeah, I wish I did. I thought you'd already seen it. No,
let me finish the last 20 minutes of Top Gun, and then
and then come get it, because it is my favorite movie of last year, and I was shocked that it got the Oscar. And I didn't watch the Oscars. Nope.
Well, then I don't know that you should say it was your best.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to be my favorite movie regardless.
Maverick.
But no, and by the way, I don't watch the Oscars. I stopped watching it years ago. I don't care, but I was legitimately excited when I woke up the next morning and saw that it won everything. So anyway, but Jamie Lee is a phenomenal actress. She has given me some of my favorite movies of all time. And then, that leads to she has an off branch of another family, the Gyllenhaals. She's the godmother of Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal, whose father and mother, Stephen Gyllenhaal and Naomi Foner, have been working in the industry for years.
Yeah.
And both of them have given me some of the Nightcrawler, Prisoner. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal and Maggie's been in Donnie
Darko
along with Jake. All of their performances have been great, and the nepotism part doesn't bother me. And there's another group of nepotism that I'm going to mention here, that doesn't bother me at all. Is Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn gave us Kate Hudson and Wyatt Russell.
Technically, Goldie Hawn gave us
Kate Hudson. I know, but
they did give us Wyatt Russell, and Wyatt Russell is fantastic in a couple of things.
But Kate recognizes Kurt as her father. So I give him props for giving her some good acting chops. But yeah, these are instances of families that have produced, and by the way, all the families we've mentioned have given us great performances and great movies that we love. But of course, there are those who, God bless it, you used your advantage to get into movies, and you really shouldn't be there. There are other star actresses who who have way more talent than you, and should not be here. And that's a good example.
But I don't think they have long careers.
There's one that I could argue it has had a long career, and I don't understand why, even though I like her. Jennifer Aniston.
Man, she hasn't been a successful show though. It's just,
yeah, but again, she was not
she played one part. for 30 years.
Yeah, and she continues, and I'm just like, and like,
yeah.
So
I don't know. Have you ever seen her in that Leprechaun, dude?
That actually started my crush of Jennifer Aniston as Leprechaun, and then she's like, "Oh, it's the," and then she was in Friends. I'm like, "Oh, it's the chick from Guard Leprechaun."
I'm going to admit it now. I don't have a crush on Jennifer Aniston.
I did at one point when I was younger.
Did not. So I am very proud of myself. James, what else did you want to talk about with this topic?
I want to talk about, I think there's this sense of, you talked about the family business, and I think that's valid, but I think there's also those parents that get a little bit worried about their children going into the family business because they know how bad it can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's stories, and I was trying to see if I could find anything to back this up, but I've heard stories that Donald Sutherland tried to convince, for instance, Kiefer Sutherland not to go into the family business, that it was not what he needed to do. But there's a story about that I find fascinating, because I don't know if you know this, Donald Sutherland for quite some time did Volvo commercials.
Yeah, amongst others.
Yeah, but Volvo commercials, and the story goes, actually, it's in an interview with Kiefer Sutherland, that Kiefer found out, thought he was making pretty good money, but found out how good of money he was making just doing Volvo commercials, the narration for Volvo commercials. And so when he found out, he called his father's agent up and said, quote, "I told his agent that I could do a really good Donald Sutherland for half that amount of money." I don't think my father thought it was very funny, but I thought it was hilarious.
It's hilarious.
And I think that's one of the things that, I think that's the other side of it, right? I think when you talk about nepotism, it's important to think about the other side of that, right? I think, for instance, we all have jobs, careers, if you will. And I like my job. I like my quote unquote career, but I don't know if it'd be the first thing I'd want my kids to do.
I don't want my son to go into this unless he had some sort of just burning desire.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I love what I do, but I don't know if I'd be the first person to say, "Oh no, children, the best path for you in life is to become an educational historian because we're so in demand," right? I don't think that's it. And I think that's the other side of it, that when you look at these examples of what does it mean to be an actor, a director, or anything else, it's a lot.
It's tough. It's a hard road. I mean, because this business that we clearly aren't all that in, but this business is tough, and there's a lot of no's, and there's a lot of work out there for tradesmen, for trade people, for skilled trade people, but the work moves, and you have to be kind of a gypsy to do that. And if you want to be an actor or the actual creative as far as writing and directing and producing, then it's tough. It's a tough business.
Well, and I think you hit walls, right? I think that's one of the things that, I mean, looking at Jennifer Aniston as an example, does she have famous forebears? Sure. But she had to do the leprechaun.
Well, yeah. But I mean her dad was Dexter Kuriakis.
You don't start in, and I would say the same thing, and no offense meant, Jamie Lee Curtis got insanely lucky in some ways to get to start in Halloween. Now, Halloween wasn't Halloween at the time, obviously. But if you think about what she could have had to start in, if you think about, to come out and really only have, and I'm not saying Jamie Lee Curtis applied on her family name or anything.
Right.
But if that is all you bring to the table, you're going to have to take some movies that may not be great. Jamie Lee Curtis was fortunate that Halloween is a classic and did something new, or redefine something that was pre-existing, if nothing else. So I think that's one of the things too. I think I do sometimes think about it though, because my other question is, you mentioned the Bridges earlier, and of course I can't bring up the Bridges without bringing up the greatest combo of the Bridges ever in a movie. That would of course be Lloyd Bridges and Jeff Bridges in the 1994 epic Blown Away. And
well,
you
he worked
have
with
that.
both of his sons. He worked with both of his sons. But
but you
did a TV movie with Bo once.
Yeah. But you have that moment, that question, I guess, where you like, I want to know, did they both happen to sign on that movie? I would imagine not, right? I would imagine one of them, in my mind,
I
probably
would
Jeff
imagine
called
Jeff
Lloyd up.
Bridges and Called Lloyd, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's an interesting part of it as well. If you're trying to establish, because that there, it's not his father in the thing. It's a father-like relationship, but it's not. He's not playing his father in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get movies that are completely built around this idea of a family where they just cast the family members. And I think the best example of that, and you all may argue with me, is It Runs in the Family, which stars the Douglases as this.
It's a good one, but my mind automatically goes to a movie that's kind of, I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but on Golden Pond, where, James.
That's actually a great example. I think that's a better example because it's a better movie. No
Yeah,
offense meant to the Douglases.
no, that's a fun movie because there's three generations of Douglases in there. But on Golden Pond, Henry won I think, an Academy Award. But
well, I mean, it has nothing to do with that. It's got Katharine Hepburn in it, so it automatically gets points for me because Katharine Hepburn had personality,
right.
and personality will take you far with me. But
Quickly,
yeah,
quickly though, about Lloyd, Jeff and Bo have both said, and I find this interesting, where other people try to talk them out. He actually wanted them. He loved being an actor. He loved the business. He wanted his boys to go into the business.
yeah, I think it's all about what you want to do, right? And I think it's also about knowing your kid. Like if one of my kids turned out, and so far it doesn't look like high risk, but if one of them got really nerdy and wanted to spend a ton of time in the archives and stuff, I guess I'd be like, well, okay, if you're gonna do it, let me take you under my wing and give you what I can give you, and you need to learn from other people too, because God knows I ain't the be all end all.
Well, I mean, you are to Chad and I.
Well, that's God. You all need to raise your standards.
Yeah,
Have
we
you
don't
thought?
have any standards.
We like you. We have no taste,
We have
but
no
we like
taste.
you.
We like you.
Did I mention I really want to watch G-Man from Hell?
No, didn't mention it at all. Have I told you that you really shouldn't go out on Best Picture deciding until you've watched Maverick?
I did. Mel Gibson. Pretty good.
Maverick.
That's a good one. That's good.
That's a good one.
That is a good.
I don't think you can convince me there's one better. That James Gardner.
That is a good one. So there's a ton of examples that we could go through for. I mean, right now, well, Ethan Hawke just directed a movie with his daughter here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And she's a good actress. She's in Stranger Things. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's.
And by the way, you shouldn't say just his daughter. Now he directed his daughter, but that she also has a mother.
Uma Thurman. I never heard of her.
Yeah, you never heard of Uma Thurman. She never killed Bill or nothing, which ties us back to the Carradines.
Yeah,
and we. Sorry, I got a cough real quick. I'm gonna mute my microphone.
While he's coughing, James is taking a drink, and I will be talking to you with my dulcet tone.
So we still got, you also have the Stillers, Jerry Stiller,
yeah,
and Ben and Amy. Amy is a lesser known, but she does a lot of very minor work in Hollywood. She usually plays like some kind of crazy mother. And then Ben, the third generation, has started. His daughter Ella has begun acting in a few things. So she's just getting her start.
The Reitmans.
Sorry?
Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman, his sister, I forgot, she actually has her own show in Canada.
Yeah.
She also stars and produces.
This is one of those examples of maybe you shouldn't have gone this route. She got in by Bayer Sterner name, but Johnny Depp and his daughter Lily Rose Depp, that's another example. But again, I really feel like Lily Rose may be a little in over her head.
Oh, wow. Johnny will pull this out. So
yeah,
back to it. I'm curious. Is there any others that we should talk about there's just so many, the Murrays, but that's not multi-generation.
Yeah. It's like the Baldwins. They're not multi-generation. They're mostly just the brothers.
Yes. Right.
But, I think that's an interesting point because the Long Riders were all brothers. And I think it is interesting. And I will admit, unfortunate incidents of recent news that have kept out like in the news. I love the fact that the Baldwins don't get along politically. Like, to be honest, that makes me feel a little bit better because I can imagine that their family reunions outside of their movie making and all that stuff or about like my family reunions where everything goes fine, everybody's enjoying the potato salad and whatnot, and then somebody brings up politics, and you're like, "Oh hell, we're done."
Look at
Here
you,
it goes.
fancy Frenchman, with your potato salad.
I didn't say it was good potato salad. It was just mustard on potatoes.
That's more than I've got right now. Me and my love of potato salad. All right, I think we're kind of getting towards the end of this topic, unless I'm missing something.
Well, so the other thing that I would say, are there any? I'm trying to think of other up and coming because there's quite a few. You could argue actually Bryan Cranston's father was an actor, but he wasn't a successful. Right. If you, by the way, that's a great autobiography. His memoir. Is it what's it called? I'm blanking on the title. Bryan Cranston's memoir.
Just Google. Yes.
He talks about his father was in the late great, recently passed at 100 years old, Burt I. Gordon. He was in some of his movies as an extra. Which, if you're an extra in a Burt I. Gordon movie, but Bryan Cranston said in his book his favorite scene that his dad ever did was beginning of the end, which stars Peter Graves, is about grasshoppers that attack Chicago, and his dad was killed by a grasshopper in the opening scene of that movie. He's a military guy. Anyway, that being said, so I think that's the other thing that I kind of close it on, I guess, for me is that there's also all these other connections. And actually, you alluded to it earlier, Joe. Coppola started with the music side of thing and slowly jumped over.
Yeah.
And I wonder, that's the other side of it is I think for all the nepotism in the world, that doesn't mean, as you all alluded to earlier, right? It doesn't guarantee you a career.
It doesn't guarantee you a career. And Chad gave I understand where Chad's coming from, his example of one, but for the most part, for these people who had a short burst or were on the scene, I don't think longevity is true for most people who aren't real talents or don't have actual talent. I don't think longevity is in the cards for them. Just like in your own work, wherever you're at. I mean, you probably get pissed at people. It's like, well, they keep getting promoted and they keep getting moved, they suck. But truthfully, look around you. Most of the time, people who aren't very good at something end up moving on or moving out or just. Am I right, John?
Agree. You deal with influences, and then eventually they disappear.
They just kind of disappear to do something.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is how much grind do you have in you? I think that's the other part. And we've talked about this when we've interviewed other people, actors, writers, stuff. It is, and even I can only parallel it to what I know. But I can write a dozen articles. I've got one that's been cited 20 times. I've got one that was published literally the same week that's been cited twice. If I got paid by citations, you would know me for that one, but not that other one, right? And I think that's what it is. We're all, no matter what your field is, some of these actors that have these family connections are in god awful films. And if they don't find something else to jump into or something else to move into, then that's when their career is done.
Yeah.
Case in point, and I'll end on this one family. And this is a good family to end on. You have to talk about the Howards. You have Rance Howard and Gene Spiegel Howard, two great character actors that would be forgotten if it wasn't for the fact that they produced Ron Howard and Clint Howard. So you have Ron Howard, who is excelling, continues to excel, and then you have Clint Howard, who kind of going down this way, but
he is a icon. Especially for a horror movie. He's a horror movie icon.
I am not belittling Clint Howard. He is an icon in terms of the status of Ron Howard, not so much.
No. Well, that's a tall order.
Yeah. And then Ron, of course, gave us Bryce Dallas Howard, who should stick around. She's a talented actress.
She's a good actress, but she's a damn good director.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. Yeah. Yes. She learned a lot. So
yeah.
By the way, Chad, can I say one thing real quick, Chad, before we wrap this up?
Yep.
I just assumed out of the fact we were talking about family being in movies together, and your, let's say, penchant for bringing up things just to throw me and Joe off. I assumed you were going to throw out the Olsen twins at some point.
No, because they did
a lot of TV movies, Chad. They did a lot of them. A lot of
I
takes
know,
two. It takes more than two. I don't know what all.
But again,
that
falls into the Baldwins. It was the three daughters.
Well, I know, but we started with Long Riders, which is all brothers. But actually, which now though it's making me think most the kids today don't remember the Olsen twins, but they remember a certain other Olsen.
Yeah,
that's true.
That Scarlet Witch is remembered way more than the Olsen twins now.
You know what? I am not going to disagree with that. That is absolutely positively true. Yeah.
And she's a better actress.
Yeah, she is a better actress.
It takes two or one good one.
Ooh.
That's right. Come at me, Olsen twins. My name's Chad Jennings.
Oh, hey, New York Minute sucked. There, come at me.
Like they're going to bother to watch it either.
Well, but no, that's why I literally picture them.
It'd be so fun if they did.
I picture them dabbing their tears with their money. That's all I did was be like, quick, hand me another 100. He said another mean thing.
The best thing about New York Minute is it gave us Jarrett Peledacki, whatever his fucking name
Paddle
is.
Paddle Duck.
Yeah.
They gave us Jared Paddle Duck. He will be known as nothing other than Jared Paddle Duck. All right, guys. Well, this has been Bonehead. I think we should probably wrap this one up a little bit. I know this is a little bit of a different topic, but I actually think it was a pretty good idea, James.
Well, I mean, honestly, I was thinking we were going to do films, but I'm glad it went the way it did because
bow your head in shame, you piece of shit. This was
I only had Long Riders and It Runs in the Family before I hit a wall and said, God, I hope they have something. So
I had a whole list.
Well, name them.
I did. I've named them all throughout this last minute.
Oh, well, shit, you didn't have that big of a list.
New York Minute. That's all he had.
That's all it took him to name his fucking list.
No, I'd had a list, and then Joe went and repeated what I said.
I did not. I just repeated those ones. Did I talk to you about the Gyllenhaals? And did I talk to you about the Hawks? And did I talk to you about the Bear?
I was going to say, you could do Donnie Darko, and you could also say, real quick, I've got to mention, I forgot one thing, and this is only for Mystery Science Theater 3000 fans. Y'all remember Operation Kid Brother with Neil Connery? No, you don't. Nobody does. But it exists. They couldn't get Sean, but they could get his younger brother Neil. So we got Operation Kid Brother. It has a dozen other titles. Check it out sometime if you're a completist. If you're not, don't.
This has been Bonehead Weekly. Fun. No, this is a regular Bonehead Weekly.
Yeah, regular. This
it's
is the
regular
version that people tune out in the same time it takes for them to watch the fun.
This is what they leave on for their dogs if they hate their dogs.
Good night, people, and fuck your dogs.